So according to the U.S. attorney, Blagojevich was escalating the kind of fundraising activity at the end of the year. So these two things converge, this bleeping golden opportunity of trying to make something out of the Senate seat, or perhaps even to put himself in there, which gives an idea of the kind of ego that's involved and kind of the recklessness that he thought that, well, if he couldn't get enough out of somebody else for appointing someone to the Senate, that he could go in as an appointment of himself, and in that position of being a senator would be more protected from U.S. indictments. So according to the wiretapping that was going on, he was even contemplating that he was going to be indicted and thinking about it, how he might be in a stronger position if he were in the U.S. Senate. So.
Well, one of the most intriguing aspects, especially for a publication like yours that follows the American labor movement so closely, was the allegation in the complaint that I think it was on November 12th that that the governor had a phone conversation with a top leader of the Service Employees International Union. The union official is not named, where he discussed one of his ideas for possibly utilizing the Senate seat to his the appointment to the Senate seat to his benefit, was asking the SEIU to participate in a three-way deal with the incoming Obama administration, whereby he would appoint a favored candidate of Obama for the seat in exchange for the SEIU giving him where there were two deals. One, a top job at Change to Win, the Reform Labor Association, or alternatively, helping to fund a nonprofit, which he would then run. And supposedly the leader of SEIU, according to the complaint, says to the governor, well, I'll run it up the flagpole. But again, the leader is not mentioned, but it does seem that to some degree he was trying to use his ties in the labor movement to affect this bizarre deal.
Right. Well, the SEIU is denying that there were these conversations that took place, but otherwise not providing much information about what went on. And at this point anyway, there was certainly no evidence that they actually had taken steps beyond this, alleged talking about running it up the flagpole. But Blagojevich had a very kind of troubled relationship with the labor movement. There were certain unions like SEIU who supported him very strongly and continued to support him. And in part, one of the things that they had actually gotten out of the Blagojevich administration was the right to organize home care workers. So it was roughly 40, 50,000 members that they were able to get. And Blagojevich has occasionally done other good things for the labor movement. Just this week, as you probably noted in the course of this factory occupation, he came out just the day before the criminal complaint was filed and said that he was going to get the state of Illinois to withhold all business with Bank of America. So he's been oddly sort of pro-labor in that regard, but in terms of dealing with public employees and public employee unions, he's been as difficult for public workers as any Republican, perhaps more so. So he's had a real mixed relationship with labor, and many labor unions in Chicago had been part of the traditional political machine and sort of knew how the game was played in Chicago and Illinois, and as nearly anybody who had been deeply involved in politics here would obviously know.
Well, the other incredible allegation had to do with the Chicago Tribune,
right.
That supposedly he and his chief of staff conspired to try to pressure the Tribune to fire several of their editorial writers, including John McCormick, an editorial page editor, because they'd been writing all of these editorials criticizing him, and he was threatening to use a state financing agency to withhold support for the Tribune, which owns the Chicago Cubs, to sell Wrigley Field and get a tax benefit as a result of that. So he was using actually his state position as a club to extort a firing of members of the Chicago Tribune staff. Your reaction to that?
Oh, well, I mean, that's quite incredible. And once again, the complaint cites a reaction from the Tribune as the message having been heard, which was sort of ambiguous at the same level as the SEIU alleged comment about running it up the flagpole. So there, if you believe the complaint information, there was not an immediate rejection of this proposal, even though obviously the reporters themselves who were named McCormick is still working at the Tribune. But, you know, he's had a hostile relationship with the press and particularly with the Tribune for a long time, you know, and going back even before he was governor. And, you know, part of his whole style of governing has been to run as combating with everybody else. He started off his tenure as governor taking on the legislature as if they were the enemy. And this was a democratically controlled legislature. And Democrats in the state had thought, finally, you know, we have a Democratic governor after so many years of Republicans in power. And, you know, he started off just fighting with his own legislative leaders.
And also, he was also seen initially as a reform candidate, wasn't he? He supposedly was running against the corruption represented by former Republican Governor Ryan. Previous to that, he had run for the seat of Dan Rostenkowski, who was also convicted of corruption, and so he was considered a reformer.
Yeah, well, that was certainly the banner he campaigned under, and there was really obviously not much evidence that he took that agenda seriously, since this was not a question of him having been in office for a while and sort of succumbed to all the seductions of power. Apparently, according to everything the U.S. attorney has on him, that he was beginning these operations from the very get-go.
And your sense of what the impact of this might be on terms of Barack Obama? Clearly, David Axelrod, one of his chief advisors, late last night said he had been mistaken when he told the reporter some weeks ago that Obama had been in conversations with the governor about the Senate seat. Now, he's now denying that. He said he was mistaken. Your sense whether there'll be any impact on Obama of this arrest?
Well, in the complaint itself, there's a discussion about approaching Obama, and you know the complaint says that Blagojevich, you know, in his usual sort of you know explicit expletives, was denouncing Obama for not having been willing to make a deal. So at least at the level of the kind of complaint information, Obama comes out looking pretty clean. But that's one of the problems. Once you get somebody who's as tarnished as he is, if you even get within the same room, you begin to get suspect. And that's going to be one of the things that's going to probably affect a lot of the candidates who are looking forward to being named as U.S. Senator, such as Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., who had met with Blagojevich. And simply the fact of having met with him shouldn't implicate anybody, but under these circumstances, it's going to have kind of a tarnishing effect on everybody. I don't know, you know, and it looked before like things were very secure for Democrats. Name a Democratic candidate to fill out the remainder of the term, and then as incumbent would be in a strong position probably to run. Illinois is still a fairly strongly Democratic state, but whether now there's such a backlash against all this that a Democrat has trouble is hard to tell at this point. I think that it still should be a safe seat, but that would actually be politically on a national level one of the worst outcomes if, in the wake of all this, that a Republican took that seat.
Well, we'll be keeping tabs on this, the possibility that there may now be a special election for the seat. The state legislature will have to be deciding that over the next few days. I want to thank you, Dave Mohlberg, Senior Editor for In These Times, for being with us. And when we return from break, we'll be looking at another major story here in Chicago, the fight of the workers at Republic Windows and Doors who have been sitting in their factory now for several days.